Hello, students. This is week 5 for Psychology 1010, General Psychology. In this week, we will talk about one of the greatest, one of the major parts of psychology, which is honestly very interesting for everybody to know about these parts of psychology. It's about developmental psychology. In psychology, we have different keywords about different aspects, different fields, or subcategorization of psychology. One of the basic parts of psychology is developmental psychology. And the keyword for developmental psychology is about change. As you remember, as you remind that we define psychology as the scientific studying, scientific investigation of behaviors and mental processes. And I talked about it with you in the first session that if you want to study every aspect of psychology, you can consider these keywords in that definition. For example, when you say about the mental disorders, the scientific studies of mental and behavioral disorders is called clinical psychology. When you want to talk about the scientific studies of relatively consistent behavior and mental processes, it is called personality psychology. When you want to talk about the changes in the abnormality in behaviors and mental processes, it is called abnormal psychology and other parts, psychopathology. And also, now we can consider the keyword of change and enter this keyword to that approved definition of psychology. When we enter the word change in the definition of psychology, we can define developmental psychology as the scientific studying of changes in behaviors and mental processes in a lifespan from the first year from before birth until the death. And it is very interesting to know scientifically, to know about the changes that we can find in human being. So let's start it about the um, different parts that we want you to know about the psychology. Let me start sharing with you. Okay, it's here. As you see, the first part is about the nature versus nurture. One of the basic questions in developmental psychology. It is about the interaction or dominancy of nature and nurture. Is there any dominancy between them? Nature over nurture or nurture over nature? Or no, there is an interaction between them. So the learning outcomes of this part, of this module of your book is compare and contrast the influence of nature versus nurture and describe developmental research techniques for comparing and studying the nature and nurture in developmental psychology and in human being, and discuss prenatal development, which is very important for us. As I said to you, one of the basic questions in gathering information about the human development, lifelong human development, is about nature versus nurture. The issue of the degree to which environment or nurture and heredity nature influence behavior. We are talking about the degree of influence. We are not talking only about one element or two elements. We are talking about degree of influence of nature and nurture. For example, your genetics part, your heredity is your natural part, natural side of your behaviors. And your education, your environmental influence is about your nurture. No longer a question of nature versus nurture, because both factors interact to produce developmental patterns and outcomes. But now we ask, how and what degree do nature and nurture produce their effects? We are talking about the processes and about the importance of nature versus nurture. We are not talking about is it only for nature or is it only for nurture. We are talking about the comparison between nature and nurture. We are talking about the degree to which nature and nurture have effect on our developmental course, lifelong developmental course. Experimentally control genetics makeup of laboratory animals, then study environmental influences. At first, also before entering to studying of human beings about the nature and nurture, we started with always we have started with working with animals, for example, mice, sometimes monkeys, and other animals that can be a little or in some degrees, sometimes in high degree of similarities with human beings. But one of the good, perfect, proper case studies for studying the comparison between nature and nurture in human development is about identical twins with the same genetic traits, just the same. They are the one person with two bodies. Genetically, they are one person with the genetic aspects, with the genes and chromosome and other parts, which include heredity for identical genes. Uh, in identical twins share 100% of genetic makeup, just the same. They are one person in two bodies. And non-twin siblings raised apart. Similarities as adults show importance of heredity. Why we do it? Because in research method, in all types of research methods, even in business research methods, and in uh, marketing research method, in all types of research methods, we should consider that if you want to know about the different parts of your life, you should control the variables. If you cannot control the variables, you cannot do anything. Because of that, in the future, in the course of research method and statistics, you will know about the control groups and examine group and experimental group. One of them with the variables that are under control. Other groups is out of control. They are the natural group without any intervention, only observation. And in comparison between them, you can find the differences between the groups and relate the differences you have find to the interventions, to the experiments you have done, or to the observations and different natural or environmental aspects of intervention and elements that you can consider in your experiments. So you see that in identical twins, after uh, some studies in identical twins, we have find some basic similarities with a high degree of similarities in the adulthood in different families. Two identical twins, one of them go for parenting and one separate because, for example, their parents are poor and they cannot grow their children. And there are two identical twins. One of them sent to one family, the next one sent to original family or sent to another family. Different natures, different environment, different nurtures with the 100% genetic makeup with the same nature. In different environment, we see after passing and after going through the childhood and adolescence and entering adulthood, we can find, for example, after age of 25, we can find many basic similarities in talking, in personality, in genetic parts. Also, personality is not always a genetic part. Personality is highly affected by your environment. But we can find some basic, major, important, significant similarities between those. On one side, it is about nature. And adopted children. Adopted children is the oppositional side. It is studying the importance of nurture, environment, parenting, training, education. We know we adopt a children from a biological parent and taking them and bringing them to our home and train them and educate them and work with them until their adulthood and after that. Similarities with biological children in same family show importance of environment. I have my son and I adopt another child. Okay. So two children in a position of two children with the 100% genetic makeup with different environment, two children with different genetic makeup in a 100% environment. And it shows that, yes, different genetics at the same and similar environment shows that, yes, we can find many similarities between these two children. It is very important to know about the research method or research techniques in developmental psychology. Basically, we have three basic research techniques or research method. It is related to the time, to the traits, and to the quality of research we are doing. It is sometimes quality research, sometimes quantity research. But it is important that in what duration of time, it is about temporal course, duration of time that you are considering for your research. At first, it is cross-sectional research, comparing people of different ages at the same point of in the time. What does it mean? For example, I want to know the differences between people from the age of 45 to age of 65. I want to know the differences during, for example, it is called midlife. The end stage of midlife, it is from 45 to 65. In a duration of 1 year, I choose different people, for example, 200 people in 20 groups. Each of groups is 10% from one age, 10 with 45, 10 for 46, 10 for 47, and 10 for 16, and 10 for 61. And finally, I have 200 people in 1 year. I'm studying 200 people in 1 year for different ages. And I want to know the differences between these people because of their age, because of their environment. It is cross-sectional. In one section, I cross different ages. In the other, it is good. It is good. But there's a major important fault and sometimes error that we can find in this research method. In cross-section, we only consider in a very limited of time different people at the same time. But in longitudinal research, same people in different time. For example, we choose 20 people or 30 people or 40 people and study from the age of 45 to age of 65 for 20 years, the same people. We consider, we investigate, we study the same people in a long time period of time, long time. It is very good. The same man at the age of 45, at the age of 50, at the age of 55, at the age of 60, at the age of 65. 5 times during a duration of 20 years, we are, for example, it's an example, 5 times in a time of 20 years, we consider, we study, we talk, we have interview and other investigation about one single person, or about, for example, 30 persons. But it takes time. 20 years research, conduct for 20 years. It is highly riskable. Some of them may die, or maybe some changes in the environment, some changes in the, for example, researchers has some problem. We don't know. But national and international important researchers are based on longitudinal, especially in developmental psychology. It is very, very important. Let me say you an example from other scientific field, so-called pharmacology. Pharmacology or pharmacy, study of pharmacy or medication. We have a very good example here in that part, in that field, so-called clinical trial. Clinical trial is the trial studying, examining a drug, a medication. For example, when you want to have to create a new type of antidepressant pills or capsules or for injection, for example, between 5 years to 10 years, it needs time. Because of that, when in the time of COVID-19, vaccination was or vaccine was created only after 10 months. It is something like miracle. Why? Because scientifically, you need between 3 to 10 years trial with different animals, with different genetics, with different cultures, with different races, with different countries, with different geographical territories, until finally said yes or no. Why? Because it is about people. It is about dying or living. There is no joke at all. It's very serious. Because of that, for example, when some companies created vaccines for COVID-19, it was some like miracle. And also, we don't know about the future of this vaccine because it is in a short period of time. Also, yes, it is very scientifically, the best companies all around the world have worked on it. But 10 months or 1 year is very, very short time for testing a vaccine. Very, very short time. It is longitudinal. I know that for the one of the most famous and one of the most efficient antidepressant pills, so-called Zoloft has taken near 10 years of clinical trial in the companies. And the sequential research, combination of cross-sectional, a little long time, with many people, a combination of cross-sectional and longitudinal research is called sequential research. Combination of cross-sectional, consider different age group, examined at several points in time. It is very popular, very common in researchers. If I think in the future you will be one of the researchers for the marketing or business, sometimes you have to do some future studying. Future studying is a very basic scientific field, very, very basic scientific field. To think about, not think about, to find the models of development for the future. It is future studying. Sometimes you need to do cross-sectional about marketing your goods, your IT productions, your services, and other things you want to have in the future. Sometimes it is longitudinal. You want to have a 5 decades program, for example, for car industry. You cannot do it only 1 year. It's not a good data from that research. What is prenatal period? Prenatal period is from the orgasm and shaping the zygote until the birth. It is prenatal, only in the body of your mother. It is prenatal period, and the development in this period is called prenatal development. Basic of genetics. We have 3 parts, 4 parts, sorry. At first, genes. Second part, DNA and chromosomes, and 2 types of cells, sperms, eggs, and zygote. So in one approach, we consider the sperms and eggs and combination of those, which is called conception, and shaping and forming a combined matter between the eggs and also sperms, which is called zygote. What is chromosomes? Chromosomes are not the basic part of our heredity. The basic part is genes, and yes, we can consider also the elements, the components of genes, so-called nucleic acids, the basic part of heredity. But you consider genes because the nucleic acids are the elements to shape the genes, are the coding, and after that encoding, for example, again, we want to talk about vaccines in for COVID-19. It is RNA base. RNA base is, it means that it doesn't relate to your immune system like other vaccines. It is related to the structure of the coronavirus and changing the structure and deactivate that coronavirus. Because of that, it said it is RNA based. RNA is based on the genetics and work with your genes, with your DNA, and also with your RNA, and finally with your chromosome. We, as human beings, have 46 chromosomes in pairs, 23 pairs of chromosomes. One here, one there, one, 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 one. It is called DNA. Okay? Structures that contain all basic hereditary information, 23 pairs, one chromosome of each pair from the mother and one from your father. Because of that, it is in conception, we have some information, genetic information from our father in their sperm, and the same amount of information, not the same information. Again, 23 chromosomes from our mother. Together, summation is 46 chromosomes. And genes, the parts of the chromosome through which genetic information is transmitted. It is very, very scientific. And some scientists in the field of future study think that the genetics is the science of the future for the 21st century. As you know, in different aspects of science, we have some good scientific based, evidence based studying and prediction of the future. One of them is about the health sciences. In health sciences, they said 21st century science is genetic science. And we will have we will create some major new differences in health sciences by working on our genetics, human genetics. And zygote, the new cell formed by union of an egg and sperm. As behavioral genetics, it is a very, very, very interesting field of science. Very interesting. It is behavioral genetics. The science, the major science that is studying the genetic part, the chromosome-based part, the heredity-based part of your behaviors. And behavioral genetics have discovered genes are also at least partially responsible for a wide variety of personal characteristics. For example, we know in some mental disorders, like depression, like anxiety disorders, like schizophrenia or schizophrenic spectrum disorders, with the heaviest mental disorders are schizophrenia, spectrum disorders. In these disorders, or mood disorders, especially bipolar mood disorders, have very strong genetic base. Because of that, in the science, in the major science, so-called behavioral genetics, we, together with genetics, we as psychologists, together in cooperation with genetic scientists, work on the behaviors and genetic components and genetic roots and genetic causes of those behaviors, including cognitive abilities, personality traits, and psychological disorder. For example, intelligence, IQ, academic intelligence, and some personality traits. For example, you see in a family, we can find generation after generation, generation after generation, some fixed personality traits. All of them are, for example, narcissistic. All of them with different degrees of antisocial personality, sometimes antisocial personality disorder, sometimes smoother traits, so-called personality traits, not that the severity of call it disorder. Okay, you can see here the conception, 23 pairs of chromosomes, DNA sequences, and also genes. Embryo, fetus, and age of viability. What is embryo? A developed zygote that has a heart, a brain, and other organs. The first shaped, the first formed of a human in the body of your mother is called embryo. The first. Before that, it is only cells. It is not embryo. Yes, it is living cells. All cells are living. But there is no shape of body, no heart, no brain, no spinal cord, no neural tube, no hand, no foot, anything. Only cells. It's a mass of cells, which is called zygote, and after that, reproduce the cells until the first time we can find a tube, which is called neural tube, and after that, some parts added to the tube that in the future this tube will be spinal cord, and that part at the one extreme is will be your brain. The first time as a physician, sometimes the mother can feel it, but in the first weeks mother cannot feel the motion of the fetus. It is embryo, a developed zygote, the combination of eggs and sperms are zygote. A developing individual from 8 weeks after conception until birth is called fetus. So, the first part is embryo. The second part is fetus after 8 weeks to the birth. What is the normal duration of a pregnancy? The normal duration of pregnancy is 40 weeks, 9 months, 40 weeks, 270 days. It is normal time of pregnancy. Between 38 weeks to 42 weeks, it is matured pregnancy with the average of 40 weeks. Plus and minus 2 weeks, 38 weeks to 42 weeks with the average of 40 weeks. Before 38, it is called premature pregnancy. After 42 weeks, it is called post-mature. But random, it is about 38, sometimes 37 to 40, 41 weeks. Okay? After week 8 until birth, near 32 weeks. 40 minus 8 is equals to 32. This time of near 32 weeks is called fetal stage, and the embryo has become a fetus. What is age of ability? If by any reason mother cannot continue the pregnancy, she should go to hospital and has a very emergent labor. In what time we can also with highly advanced high-tech approaches in the or devices in the hospital, but with them in what time we can maintain the life of the fetus after age of 22 weeks. Also, he or she, the fetus, should be in an apparatus in a device so-called incubator. Incubator is very good for maintaining the life of the premature fetus. But before age of 22 weeks, no, we cannot, regularly we cannot save the life of the fetus, and the fetus will be dying. Okay? And the point at which a fetus can survive if born prematurely, before the 30 weeks, 38. In prenatal development, we have a sensitive and critical periods. It is very important. Also, we have something like it after birth, but in prenatal development, it is very important. Any small changes in the environment in prenatal development, environment of the fetus, can have a long-term, long life effect on the fetus. This time it is called sensitive period or critical period. During perinatal time when the fetus is particularly susceptible to certain kinds of stimuli, especially in the first 3 months or first 12 weeks. It is very important. Why? Because in that time, it is the time of organogenesis. Organogenesis is meant in the first 3 months, the fetus is shaping organs, hands, heart, brain, kidney, liver, other parts, nervous system, digestive system, reproductive system, circulatory system, all the systems, basically, the basic components of all the systems are shaped in the first 12 weeks or first 3 months. Because of that, it is very important to know about these times and these durations. And honestly, every mother who wants to be pregnant should know about these items. Why? Because we cannot find a normal mother to want to create damage for her baby, for her fetus. It is not a matter of wanting, it is not a matter of intention, it's a matter of knowledge. It's a matter of having knowledge about the duration of pregnancy. These periods, we can occur before or after birth also, are important because they indicate the time that organisms are particularly susceptible to damage that may affect them for the rest of their lives. After birth, we have some specific times of critical periods of sense. Now we are talking about prenatal development. For example, for language acquisition, language acquisition has a very, very important critical period. For example, it is near 3 years. If our son, our daughter, our girl doesn't talk anything at the end of age of 3, we are wasting and losing our critical period. We should go to the doctors. We should go to the speech therapists to work professionally with our child to produce the mental model and also physical abilities to start talking. For example, it is very important. Or in adolescence, for having a good and proper weight and height, it's a critical period. If you miss this period, it can damage for all or other rest of your life. You can see here prenatal age of 4 weeks at the left and prenatal age of 15 weeks at the right. Pay attention, please. Not all the illnesses during pregnancy are called genetic problems. They are called mother-born problems. Some of them, it is because of the genetic makeup, okay, and usually transfer and transmit to the next generation. Some of them, it is not about the genetics. It is about the events, about the problems during pregnancy. Also, all of them are mother-born, but not all of them are genetics problem or genetical problems. For example, phenylketonuria or PKU cannot produce, in this we are talking about the disorders related to the pregnancy, disorders which are mother-born. In PKU cannot produce enzyme needed for normal development. Untreated causes intellectual disabilities, one of them. Sickle cell anemia, and anemia is deficiency in your red blood cells or RBCs, causes abnormally shaped red blood cells. Or a Tay-Sachs disease, inability to break down fat. All of them are mother-born. Some of them because of the environment in the pregnancy period, and some of them is related to your genetic deficiencies. And Down syndrome. Down syndrome is because of the chromosomes. It is called 21 trisomy 21. What because you learned in the previous seconds that we all have 46 46 uh, chromosomes in 23 pairs. Yes, pair, not three, only two. One from my father, one from my mother. If in 21st chromosome I have three chromosomes, it is 21st trisomy or Down syndrome. Extra chromosome at conception causes mental impairment. And other prenatal environment influences or influencing factors. One of them is mother's nutrition. Mother's nutrition is not related to your genetics, to your chromosome, but has a very important effect on the health of the fetus and the future of the fetus. Seriously undernourished mothers cannot provide adequate nutrition to growing fetus, and they are likely to give birth to underweight babies. At first, it is very interesting that if a mother doesn't have any good nourishment, hyper deficiency in feeding mother, at first, fetus uses mother's body at first. Everybody in the world, not consciously, but naturally goes to survival. Okay, this is mother, this is fetus. Mothers that doesn't have any good amount of food, or as your book says, undernourished mothers. The baby, the fetus, use the ions, use the calcium, use the um, nutrients from body of mother. But if mother will be sick, will be ill, both of them will be under the major dangers of deficiency in illnesses, in brain, in movement, in motors, in psychological aspects, in physiological aspects, both of them. So one of the greatest non-genetics, non-heredent based influencing factors on pregnancy and fetus is the mother's nutrition. Other factors are called teratogens, environmental agents like drugs, chemicals, and etc. that produce a birth defect. Every type of drug, you know, we have a classification for drugs, for medications, and also substance abuse, especially for cocaine, especially for marijuana, even smoking, even alcohol. Alcohol is very, very hazardous for a pregnant, very hazardous. We will talk about it in the next slides in PowerPoints. Alcohol is a very hazardous for pregnancy. I see in America many pregnant people use alcohol without any precaution about the health of their babies. It is very important, very dangerous, very hazardous for health of the fetus. And also smoking, we will talk about it. And some maternal problems and maternal illnesses. It is the mother's illness, but transfer and have some great damage to your fetus, to the fetus. Environmental, it is, for example, rubella. It is called German measles, syphilis, diabetes, and high blood pressure may each produce a permanent effect of the fetus. Permanent effect. After birth, for the rest of the life, the fetus will have some disability in the body, in the mental situation, and other parts, internal or external. So mother's illnesses are the next influencing factor on the health of fetus. We talk about the effects of alcohol usage during pregnancy. The major problem is called fetal alcohol syndrome or FAS. It's very, very famous word between the healthcare professional. Fetal alcohol syndrome or FAS, a condition resulting in below average intelligence, below average. Average is about 100 in IQ. Growth delays, very slow in growth, in the course development, in the sorry, in the developmental course, in the lifelong, especially in the childhood and in adolescence, we see some major delays in growing speed, in development speed, and facial deformities. You can find some these deformities in the face of children with fetal alcohol syndrome. FAS is now the primary preventable cause of mental retardation. Why? Why we can prevent mental retardation because of FAS? Because it is not genetic, there is no chromosome problem, no genetic problem, there is no heredity, only about one behavior in the mother using alcohol. So it is preventable. We educate, sometimes we force mothers to think as their fathers, as their family members. We force the pregnant that please don't use any amount of alcohol because of FAS. A little more moderate level of FAS is FAE. It is not syndrome, it is effects. Fetal alcohol effects, or FAE, a condition in which children display some, although not all, of the problems of FAS due to their mother's consumption of alcohol during pregnancy. It is about severity. The major parts is FAS. A little more moderate, a little weaker, weaker type of FAS is called FAE. Also, it is not related to you or your, for example, husband, your wife. It is the duty, it is the responsibility, it is the regular part of assessment or monitoring during the pregnancy by the professional, healthcare professional. But you should know about the healthy behaviors during pregnancy as a very, very ordinary people, very ordinary people. It is not important that you are a businessman or woman, marketer, psychologist, physiologist, also, for example, taxi driver. Anybody should know the major basic informations, for example, about a healthy pregnancy and a healthy aging, a healthy midlife, and a healthy during life, during stages, during so-called, it is in developmental psychology, they called it seasons of life. You should know about your environmental or mental or physiological or emotional or cognitive or basically physiological determinants of your seasons of life. If you are at the childhood, your mother and your father should know. If you are adolescents, if you are adults, okay, the major criteria for entering adulthood is accepting your responsibility. We say goodbye to you as an adolescent and say, have a good age, have a good night, have a good day. Go for yourself. Why? Because legally you are eligible to accept your responsibility. You are accountable. You are an adult. In adulthood, you are responsible for your behavior, for your mindset. These information help you to make some proper, some healthy, some correct decisions. Without this information, you are thinking for yourself, I am thinking for myself, and we will create some unintentional, not intentional, unintentional damage or hazard or danger for other people. You see here this pregnant lady, environmental factors, rubella or German measles, syphilis, addictive drugs, nicotine, alcohol, radiation from X-ray. It is forbidden. Any type of radiography during pregnancy is not legally, but basically scientifically is forbidden. Inadequate diet, mother's age younger than 18 at the birth of child, a mother's age older than 35 at birth of child, DES, disethyl bested, and AIDS, HIV positive, and Accutane, that you can find it in your book about the details. For example, what are the effects of rubella? Is it blindness, deafness, heart abnormality, stillbirth? And for example, about the nicotine, premature birth, low birth weight and length. It is very, very common, very, very usual in nicotine using by pregnant people. Lower weight birth is very, very common. And for example, in alcohol, intellectual disability, lower than average birth weight or small head, limbo deformities and limb deformities and other parts. Okay. In the next part, we want to talk about the infancy and childhood, describe the major competencies of newborn, and explain the milestones of physical, social, and cognitive development during childhood. Okay. Reflexes are automatic, involuntary response to incoming stimuli. You are born with your reflexes. You are born with your reflexes. You should have reflexes for survival. Why? Reflexes are the procedures, are the actions that you know and do you have, but you haven't learned. It is not related to the learning. It is related to your nature. Not only about the human beings, all the mammals, all the beings on the world, all the animals have reflexes. We are born with our reflexes. Reflexes, for example, crying. You never learned how to cry. You have never learned to cry, but you know how to cry. It is not a matter of knowledge. It is a matter of a skill, but a skill without any type of a skill training. No skill training. This is reflexes. It's your nature. Sometimes we call, in some approaches in psychology, especially in psychology, sometimes we call them instincts. Honestly, instinct is something else. Okay. Raw reflexes can have some aspects of instinctual aspects, yes, but these are not instinct, because instinct will be uh, maintained during your life. For example, instinct of hunger, instinct of thirst, instinct of sex. It is not related that you are at the age of 2, at the age of 4, at the age of 14, at the age of 40, or you are in old age. You always have the instinct of hunger and thirst. Reflexes are for the first month, first hours, and first years of your life, especially before gaining information, before learning, before observational learning, before conditional learning, and other types of learning, before the dominancy of your nurture against your nature. You need some natural actions to survive yourself. These are called your reflexes. For example, neonate born with rooting, sucking, gag reflex, startle, and Babinski reflexes. These are mother born. These are natural born. It's a part of your nature. And you can find these reflexes in your book and other parts. So you should know that healthcare professionals, especially after labor, check the baby's newborn reflexes. And sensory development, it's about your five senses. It is your vision, your smell, your auditory, and your taste, and tactile, about the sense of touch, sense of pressure, sense of temperature, sense of vibration, sense of pain, and sense of position. These are six senses that you know as tactile. Also, many people think that tactile is only about touching. No, we have six senses which are called tactile. One of the first of them is light touch. Second one, pressure. Third one, vibration. Fourth one, temperature. Fifth one, pain. And sixth one is sense of position. I know that I have sit, or I am stand up, or I'm walking, I'm stopping. It is sense of position. There is a part in my brain that create consciousness about the position in the world, your position, body position. Neonates can follow moving objects within their field of vision. Some depth perception, discriminate facial expression, recognize their mother's voices at 3 days old, and recognize different tastes and smells. After 3 days, only 3 days, newborn can differentiate his or her mother voices with other people, from other people. Differentiate, yes. Also, he or she doesn't know the name of this lady's mother. But only after 3 days, newborn can differentiate mother's voice with other people. And also from the first moment of birth, all normal, all healthy, normal newborn can check and can differentiate mother's smell of body. Because of that, it is not so good to use perfume when during, for example, laboring. After, when you want to go to physician to have a good labor, either natural labor or surgical laboring, after the ending the pregnancy, it is not good to use perfume, because physician said to you, your newborn should check your natural smell, natural body smell, and uh, after that, yes, he or she can have a sense of calmness, serenity, because it is a traumatic event in his or her life. From a very warm and easy life, come out, welcome to the world. It is also sometimes warm and easy, but ordinarily it is difficult. Because of that, the first reaction also is a philosophical mind, not the natural and biological mind. The first reaction to the world is crying. I want to go back to the same place I were for 270 days. But sorry, you cannot go back. Also, and the extraordinary newborn, many of the reflexes that the neonate is born with are critical to survival and unfold naturally as part of infant's ongoing maturation. Unfold naturally. There is no need to do anything about for unfolding reflexes. Unfold naturally. And infants lose their primitive reflexes after first few months of life and replace them with more complex, organized, learned behavior. I talk about it. It is not instinct. Instinct will remain until the for the rest of your life. Until end of your life, you have some instinctual behaviors, instinctual feelings, instinctual needs. But reflexes, okay, only for the first days, for the first month, sometimes for the first 2 years. After that, you need some more complicated, some more organized, some more behavior, interactional behavior, that all of them are learned. You see here, although at birth a neonate can make only jerky, limited voluntary movement, during the first year, you see the changes in the movement. First year of the ability to move independently grows enormously. The ages indicate time when 50% of children are able to perform each skill, different skill, walking, crying, playing, until the age of 2. The last picture is about age of 2. Remember, however, that the time when each skill appears can vary considerably. For example, 25% of children are able to walk well at age 11 months. And by 15 months, 19% of children will be able to do that. And also about the social learning and imitation. Imitation is one of the first reaction, not reflexes, but it has some natural basis for imitation. This newborn infant is clearly imitating the expression of the adult model in these amazing photos. You see the facial expression by the adult on the upper parts and imitating the same reactions, the same facial impressions in the newborn in the lower part. And physical development, the rate of growth in weight and height, and also in brain, and also in reaction. In the physical development, triple birth rate, triple in 1 year. Height increased by 50%, especially trunk and legs. Triple in weight and 50% in height, especially trunk and legs. What is attachment? Not all the mammals, even the basic experiment about finding the attachment theory was about the birds and geese and other birds in a river, in a beach, and other parts. Also, I don't want to talk about these stories because it's the longest story to talk about it. But one of the most acceptable theories about the relationship between parents and children is about attachment theory, positive emotional bond that develops between a child and a particular individual, usually a caregiver, usually your mother. It is about attachment theory. Attachment theory, it is about your emotional bond, your emotional attachment, your emotional reaction, your sense of security, your sense of insecurity. Is my caregiver is always accessible for me, especially my mother or my basic and common caregiver? Also, I told that we are talking about the mother. And classified as secure attachment style and avoidant attachment style, ambivalent attachment style, which is very, very bad situation. Sometimes your mother shows that, yes, I'm always available for you, I'm your mother, and sometimes shows that, no, I'm not available. It is not about talking, it is about interaction. We are not talking about verbal communication between the children and mother or caregiver. We are talking about the emotion that this relationship creates in the children. That emotion part is called attachment, is emotional bond. In secure, for example, secure attachment, we find that yes, I have a good emotional bond with my mother or caregiver. Every time I need her or him, yes, he or she is available for me. Why not? And I show my need, for example, as a newborn, not as an infant, not as a toddler. I show my need with my crying. And after that, for example, in toddlerhood, I show it with my little words that I know. If there is no caregiver or there is no security, it is insecure. And ambivalent is the different opposite two of at least two opposite feeling, two opposite emotion, for example, hate and love, at the same time. And disorganized, disoriented. It is very, very random support. Sometimes there is good support there, sometimes there is no support. And what is the father's role? Because we said the main caregiver and the main attachment figure is mother. Father's role is in nature of attachment is similar to mother's, but engage in more physical activities and less verbal activities. Childcare outside the home is very important in shaping the socialization process and the attachment theory and the independency in the children. Also, you should consider that it is highly dependent to the culture. We are not only talking about, for example, North American culture. This part of psychology is relative to culture. You can find different concepts about parenting, for example, in different cultures, not different necessary geographical territories. For example, in America, you can find different cultures, different religious culture, different race-based cultures, different ethnicity-based cultures, different state-based culture. Every state says, yes, this is my culture. California has its culture, Arizona has its culture, Washington has its culture. Every states, without any consideration of that state's races, for example, dominancy, majority of races or religion and other things that can influence the culture. So, child care outside the home can be beneficial. Why not? If you have good precaution about your children, why not? Especially for children with a disadvantaged home. If my son, if my daughter doesn't have any good advantages environment in my home, okay, outside of the home, if it is good control over it, why not? And if it is a high quality program, not in the street, program outside the home, high quality program outside the home, good monitoring, and especially in the time that home is not so advantageous. Other things that you should consider is about parenting styles. We have four parenting styles: authoritarian parenting style, permissive parenting style, authoritative parenting style, and uninvolved parenting style. In authoritarian parenting style, parents are so rigid, punitive, demand obedience, require a lot from their children. It is authoritarian parenting style. It is something like army, for example. Very hyper demanding parents and very rigid parents. They are authoritarian parenting. Permissive in the oppositional side, relax or inconsistent direction require leader from their children. They are so permissive at the other side. At two extremes, we have authoritarian and permissive. Which is the most healthy, most normal, most proper science-based parenting style? It is called authoritative. Firm, set limits. There are some rules here, but I'm not rigid. Only limits. Firm, set limits. Use reasoning. Explain things. Encourage independence. I don't want my children to be with me until the end of their life. Why? They should be independent, sorry. But I should prepare them for going to the private life. Not with only orders, not only say the social rules. Help them and support them to find themselves, their talents, their strengths, their weaknesses, and create based on them their own specific, unique personality and character. And knowing the needs of life. Nothing is, who's have said that everything is about money, everything is about education, everything is about, for example, your job. Yes, money, education, job are very important, but in combination together, in harmonization with together. If you are very, very well educated without any EQ, you cannot go to society and have a good relationship with other people as the partner, as the manager, as the co-worker, as the social members. I have only IQ, hyper IQ. Thanks. IQ is for academic and educational parts. What about your EQ? What about your social skills? What about your independency? And. So authoritative sets rules, but help children to be independent. And uninvolved is show leader in emotionally detached. In attachment theory, we talk about the emotional bond. In uninvolved, there is no emotional bond, no attachment. Emotionally detached. It is a biological parenting. Honestly, it is biological parenting. Only pregnancy and labor, and after that, say goodbye. Not in this severity, also, but authoritative and authoritarian are the very, very, you can find many people, especially with authoritarian parenting. And anxious parents are authoritarian. They want to have full, complete control on their children. And parenting styles also influenced by child's temperament. It is very important. It is not only about the actions of parents. Sometimes, not always, sometimes parental actions are reactions to the nature of their child, so-called temperament, the natural mother-born traits, mother-born features, mother-born characteristics of the children. Sometimes my actions, honestly, is reaction to my child. Also, I know he or she is newborn, but have some traits, mother-born traits. And Erickson's theory of psychosocial development is one of the good theory, approved theories about the development, human development, with 8 scientific base stages of lifelong development, and based on the comparison between two elements, conflictual elements, we will talk about it just now. But it is one of the first, and until now, it is one of the best psychological theories about the human development. Erik Erikson, we have two Erikson in psychology. Milton Erickson, the greatest hypnotherapist. Also, he was psychiatrist, not psychologist, but very famous in psychology and hypnotherapy in Phoenix, Arizona. He died in Phoenix, Arizona. And then the other one is Erik Erikson, that the word adolescence crisis and also identity seeking in adolescence, all the words is from Erik Erikson. I love his theory about the human development because it is lifelong until your death. It says that what is the conflict in you when you are getting near to death. Psychological development change in our interaction and understanding of each other and our knowledge and understanding of ourselves as a members of society. Because of that, the title of theory of Erickson is psychosocial development. I am not a single, unique, only one member in the world, only one being in the world. I am a bio, psycho, socio, spiritual being. 4 dimensions, at least 4 dimensions. A biological component, my body, and psychological components, my emotions, my thinking, my beliefs, and other parts, my behaviors. Social components, my trust, my belongingness, my love, my job, and finally, the meaning of life, spiritual components. At least all human beings have 4 dimensions: bio, psycho, socio, spiritual. And passing through each state necessitates resolution of crisis or conflict. Passing through every stage. Okay, let's go to look at these 5 stages. You can see here. Stage 1, we are talking about the conflicts between birth to 1.5 years. Our conflict is trust versus mistrust. Between 1.5 to 2 years, the stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt. Perfect. Excellent. Between 3 to 6 years, the conflict is about initiative versus guilt. Between 6 to 12, industry versus inferiority. In adolescence, identity versus role confusion. In early adulthood, intimacy versus isolation, for example, about marriage. In middle adulthood, generatively versus stagnation. And in late adulthood, after 65, it is ego integrity versus despair. That you can find the negative outcomes and positive outcomes of all the stages. The other one is developmental theory of Jean Piaget, a European psychologist about development, one of the greatest psychologists who has talked about human development. And he talked about and he assessed and evaluate different stage of cognitive development in human being, about the cognition, about their thinking, about your perception, for example, depth perception, not only about your rationality. Cognition is not only your rationality. All parts of your thinking is your cognition. One of them is related to your logical thinking. Yes, that part is called rationality. So you have other parts, your depth, your height, your interpretation of the world, all are cognitive components of you as a human being. Also, there's a major problem for Piaget or cognitive development theory, and the major critics is about the duration he considered for this development. He says after age of 16, there is no major cognitive development, only 16. Also, after Piaget, many scientists that approved and accepted the major course of the Piaget as the cognitive development course, as a cognitive development approach. Other sciences added some new stages. For example, it is post-formal development after the age of 16. The process by which a child's understanding of the world changes as a function of age and experience. Two components, age and experience, lead to intellectual development or cognitive development. In Piaget theory includes four stages. Stage one, sensory method, birth to age of two. Two, pre-operational stage, 2 to 7, 2 years old to 7 years old. Concrete operational stage from 7 to 12, and formal operation stage from 12 to adulthood. Piaget said in his book about 16, or sometimes you can consider, for example, 18 or 20 years. And you see here in sensory motor stage between birth to age of two, understanding comes from touching, from your sensory motor. Motor is your movement, sensory is about your five senses, five major physiological and body-based senses. Understanding comes from touching, sucking, chewing, and manipulating objects. Starting 9 months, develop object performance. Object performance is mean the awareness that objects and people continue to exist even they are out of our sight. It's very interesting. Before age of 9 months, EY, for example, show this one to a child, and after that hide it. And no, ask. No, you cannot ask, but you can consider. You can analyze the reaction of the children that he or she think, yes, if I cannot see something, that object, there is no existence for that object. It is your rationality is based on your seeing. When you consider that, yes, objects and people continue to exist even if they are out of my sight, it is called object permanence. It is one of the greatest discoveries about the cognitive development done by Jean Piaget. We can go to internet and see the ranking of psychologists, for example, 20th century psychologists. In all the sites, in the worst scenario, you can find, for example, number 5. In many rankings, approved rankings, Piaget is between number 1, 2, or 3. In the worst question, number 4 or 5. Why? Because he was the first one work about the cognitive development. Before Piaget, nobody didn't know anything about cognitive development, but many people, many scientists, not ordinary people, scientists think that, yes, it's a natural course for development, for example, of cognition. It is not about the thing that you should study for the duration of time. Piaget was the first one who talked and who assessed the cognitive development. The second stage is pre-operational stage between age of 2 to 7, development of language. Before that, you cannot use language. After knowing about 100 words, you can start language. Also, it is not complete language. Near age of 2, development of language and use of symbols. Language in two parts: audition and speaking, and writing, speaking and writing, and reading, and also hearing, listening. Also, you can delete the writing and reading. For example, at the age of 2, there is no ability to write something or read something. But about speaking and listening, it's about the voice. You make some voices for external components. You say, this is my cell phone. It's an object, external object. But the voice cell phone, it's a symbol of this object. Cell phone, mobile. It is the voice. Or I write cell phone. It is the shape for symbolic indication to this external object. Because of that, between the age of 2 to 7, development of language and use of symbol still use egocentric thought. Egocentric thought shows that this view the world entirely from his or her own perspective. Many people report that between the age of 4 to 6, they think that, yes, everybody here, also I had my situation, I had my experience about it. I remember that I was 5 years old and I thought that this lady, who I call her my mother, or that gentleman, I call him father. They are different people, my family members, only for growing me, concentrated on me, for making me as a, for example, major part of the world. It is called egocentric thought. Between the age of, especially between the age of 4 to 6, children think they are the center of the world. Because of that, when you see other adult people as the narcissistic personality problems, as the narcissistic traits, you see some childish behavior in them. It is not maturated behavior. Why? Because it is the natural, normal, healthy trait of age of between 4 to 6, that I am center of the world. And after that, you are growing, 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 and know that, yes, I'm important. Why not? But I'm not the center of the world. Nobody is the center of the world. Okay, this is egocentric. We are indicating the major concept of theory of Piaget. One of them is object permanence. The second one is egocentric thought. The third stage is concrete operational stage between the age of 7 to 12. Loss of egocentric thinking and coming and for using logical thought develops, but difficulty understanding abstract. Yes, I have logic. In pre-operational stage, you are thinking, but you are not thinking logically. There is no logical thinking between the age of 2 to age of 6 or 7. Between 7 to 12, you know the rules of logic. You are using the logic, but only for the things which are concrete. You cannot think about the abstract meaning. One of the greatest, one of the basic, one of the most important tests to find, to assess that abstract thinking has been shaped or not is about proverbs. I ask some proverbs and I say, what does that mean? If he or she can talk about the hidden or symbolic meaning of the proverb, perfect, why not? It is abstract thinking. But regularly between age of 7 to 12, children have logical thinking, but concentrated only on the major concrete, observable, external objects and meanings. Hypothetically question, beginning marked by understanding of conservation, amount, volume, or length of an object doesn't change when its shape changes. It is the meaning of conservation. For example, about the water, we change the glass and we ask children, has the volume has changed? They said, no, it is the same volume of water with different glasses. Only the shape has been changed, not the volume. It is called conservation. The amount, volume, or length of an object doesn't change when its shape changes. Or amount of liquid is short for a fat glass and amount in tall skinny glass. And formal operation stage, the fourth stage of cognitive development coined by Jean Piaget between the age of 12 to adulthood is abstract formal logical thought. He or she knows the logical thought, the logical rules, the rational rules, and can talk and can think about the symbolic parts of the mind. Other theory about the uh, childhood development is about information processing. These are not so new, but after psychosocial or Freud psychosexual development or Piaget cognitive development, it is about the information processing development. It says that developing information process, the way in which people take in, use, and store information, such as memory, speed, accuracy, atomicity, are processes focus on attention. They said that how our attention, how our memory, how our concentration, how our information processing system will change during our life. It is called information processing theories. The major part, it is very, very important discovery about human beings, so-called metacognition. Metacognition is meant we are not the only animals. We are not the only beings on the earth with the ability to think, with the ability to have cognition. But we are the only ability on the earth that think about his or her thinking, that has some cognition about his or her cognition. It is called metacognition. Sometimes I am depressed. Sometimes I am depressed that how much I am depressed, depression for depression. Sometimes I'm anxious. Sometimes I'm so anxious that how much I'm anxious, anxiety about anxiety. Human beings are the only beings on the earth that think about their thinking. It is called metacognition, an awareness and understanding of one owns cognitive processes. It is the subcategorization of cognitive development, but with a specific concentration of this categorization, it is not called cognitive development. It is called information processing theories, and especially after the growing of IT sciences and computer sciences and artificial intelligence. And now we can find some courses in universities, like, for example, cognitive neuroscience or neuroscience or emotional neuroscience. Neuroscience is the part of knowledge, part of science that works on creating some relationships between the computer science, psychology, medicine, physiology, anatomy, and finally find a way to transfer how to judge, for example, judgment from human being to robots for the next generation of life. Vygotsky, the Russian scientist, died at the age of 38. Many psychologists, many scientists say that if Vygotsky was not at the Russia of that time, it was Soviet Union, and he was in the other parts of Europe, many scientists think that Vygotsky was very, very much important and very much famous, more famous than Piaget. Why? Because a holistic approach to human development, because of the Soviet Union based on the communistic economy or communistic approach to life, everything was related to society, socialism and communism, and after that, Leninism as the major approaches to interpret the world not only as an economic approach, not as economic system. It wasn't ideological. It is a worldview. Because of that, everything in that system was related to society, also psychological approach. But the Vygotsky approach to the human development was fascinating. He talked about the socio-cultural or historical aspects and influence our own mind and on our personality. The major question of Vygotsky was how culture transfer from one person to another person. How can we gain culture? How can we gain the social rules, the ceremonies, the racial rules, not race as a biological aspect, race as a cultural aspect. The major components and phrase of Vygotsky was zonal proximal development or ZPD. Culture in which we are raised significantly affect cognitive development. Yes, yes. You can find it in an organization. Different people with different culture have different thinking about one single topic, only one single topic. Hispanic people, Jewish people, Christian people, Muslim people, white American people, African American people, Asian people, Oriental people. Many people think about one single topic in different approach because of their culture. And you see some types of cross-cultural conflicts between the parents and children. The first generation, the second generation, and third generation. You can find them. The level at which a child can almost but not fully comprehend or perform a task on his or her own, if information falls within the ZPD, children can master it. It is the role of elites. It is very important. The role of major leaders, the major thinkers approved by children to accept his or her culture. Elites around children are very important to transfer the cultural concept from one generation to another generation. If your generation doesn't have any good access to else about your cultures, he or she will refuse the culture. And if he or she cannot accept the new culture, it is cross-cultural conflict. The conflict between different cultures that you can find it so easily in a country like America with different major culture, not minor culture, the dominant culture. You can find here many people doesn't have any good, for example, family attachment. Why? Because of different cultures. The last part is it is becoming an adult. Also, the last two parts. The developmental stage between childhood and adulthood. This is called adolescence. The major parts of going from childhood to adulthood is adolescence. We can see here the average female and average male of different aspects of puberty, the period at which maturation of sexual organs occur, beginning at the about age of 11 or 12 for girls, the start of menstruation, and 3 or 4 for boys, the start of sperm march or first ejaculation, normally in their sleeps also. In the sleeping time, boys have some sperm march or first ejaculation. In this part, we want to talk about the Kohlberg's stage of moral reasoning in 3 parts: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. In pre-conventional, your personal interests are very important. Very important. We have here 3 levels: pre-conventional and post-conventional and post-conventional. In pre-conventional stages, our ethical or principle is based on our personal interests. Which is ethical? Something which is more interesting or more useful for me. It is not about my society, my social aspects. But in conventional, as the name, as the title said, it is about our convention, pleasing other or society. At first, you remember that we talk about the children, they are egocentric. They think that which is important, something is important only for me. At the age of 4 to 6, why? Because he or she is egocentric. He doesn't know anything. In pre-conventional, the only thing is about punishment or reward, which is ethical, which is moral, something that can create, for example, punishment or a reward for me. In conventional, you are going to involve with the socialization process. You want to have a good citizen, a good member of your society, of your ethnicity, of your community. Sometimes in adolescence, people go to different groups, religious groups, scientific groups, sometimes gangster groups. Okay, why? Because they are looking for their identity and they want to know the conventions, the routine rules of their society, of their communities, of their family only. And if they are from minorities, they want to know the specific rules of their minority. If they have some commitment to specific religions, they want to know about the common rules of religions. And post-conventional, it is something more than your country. Also, many people never access to this level of moral development. In post-conventional, you are thinking about the next generation. You are thinking about the mm, all human beings. It is called the next step. It's called ethical universal principles. You are doing your things, you are doing your works, your actions based on the total, a holistic approach to humanity, not only for your punishment or for your reward, as you can find in pre-conventional, not only for your, for example, social acceptance or not acceptance, as you can find in conventional state. In post-conventional stage, you are looking the total aspects of humanity in a large scale. You can find here pre-conventional morality and conventional morality and post-conventional morality. At this level, the concrete interests of the individual are considered in terms of rewards and punishment in level one or pre-conventional. In conventional, at this level, people approach moral problems as member of society. They are interested in pleasing others by acting as a good members of society. And in level three or post-conventional morality, people accept that there are certain broad principles of morality that should govern our actions. These principles are more critical than the particular laws in a society. And against stealing drugs in favor of stealing drugs and other examples. Uh, yeah. One of the things you can find here, it is about the one of the topics which is not only about psychology or sociology. It is first types of philosophy and enter the sociology by some sociologist thinkers, ancient, not ancient, but old-fashioned sociological thinkers, and after that entered the psychology and finally entered the psychiatry as a medical problem. It is suicide. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for adolescents in the US. Third cause of death for adolescents in the US. Males are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than females, but females attempt suicide more often. The rate of successful suicide in males and boys are more than females or girls. But the suicidal attempts has the more higher rates in females in the girls. Rate higher among whites and non-whites, and possible causes are depression, social anxiety, family background, adjustment difficulties, parental conflict, alcohol, and drug abuse. And the final part in this chapter, it's about development of our adulthood. Explain physical development in adulthood, discuss social development in adulthood, state the impact of marriage or children and divorce on families, and discuss the later years of adulthood. Menopause. Menopause, you can find menopause in women, usually occurring in their late 40s or early 50s, the period during which women stop menstruating and are no longer fertile. After menopause, female cannot have any experience of pregnancy. Symptoms can be treated through hormone therapy or HD, replacing estrogen and progesterone, but it can be dangerous. Why? Because your hormonal balance is very important for your natural development. Increased risk of breast cancer, blood clots, and coronary heart disease. Midlife transition in social development. For some, a time of questioning their life. It is midlife transition or midlife crisis, sometimes it is called midlife crisis. Their life. They are influenced by the idea that life will end and question past accomplishments generally happens in the early 40s. Some experiences a midlife crisis, dissatisfaction with life, but most go through middle age relatively smoothly. Okay, and what are the effects of marriage, children, and divorce on the families and the adulthood life? Average age of marriage is higher, more cohabitation before marriage. And also, it is about the uh, United States society, not about the Asian parts of the world. For example, in Asia, it's a little higher in contrast with the previous generations, but is lower than America. And more cohabitation, living together without any legal commitment. And about half of all first marriages end in divorce. It is very high rate for divorce. Almost 75% of married women with school age children are employed outside the home. 65% of those with children under age 6. You can consider the pressure a young man, a young woman as a mother should tolerance when she is at the first years of adulthood and she's alone, she has divorced, and a young children under the age of 6. She wants to grow, and as a mother, she has very difficult full-time duties, and also with no support, no social support, no family support, no a husband, anybody. We can consider them. And you know that many communities, many organizations, it's very good also, have been formed during the last decades, especially in the last 2 decades, for support young women and young mothers, especially young single parents, mothers, single mothers. Why? Because they cannot handle their marriage, they cannot handle their parenting roles only by themselves. They need some, not always governmental or federal support, some social support. It is not only about money or job. It is about guidance, mental guidance, thinking guidance, social guidance, and also helping to growing and parenting method and styles. The later of growing gerontology, the study of older adults, it's an aging. It is about the also, it is about the aging, and we have some good words here, some good phrases here. So-called, for example, positive aging, or healthy aging, or active aging. Gerontology, it is the science of studying aging. Physical changes, genetic programming theories of aging. You know that your lifestyle is very important in the quality of life in your aging. Your quality of life in aging. Human cells have a built-in time limit to their reproduction. After a certain time, they are no longer able to divide. It is one of the greatest theory about aging. It's your genetic pattern, like your mother, like your father, like your grandpa, your grandma. It's a physical aging and physical genetic pattern for your aging. And wear and tear theories of aging says mechanical functions of the body stop working efficiently as you age. It is not about your only genetic. It is about your physical activity and physical reproductivity that with aging, it says mechanical functions are stop working efficiently as you age. I am not the same man that I was, for example, at the age of 30, and I will not be like, for example, now I am 50. I will not be at the same range of motion, range of activity at the age of 70, for example, with the duration minus or plus 20 years from the middle part of the life, which we can be called near 45 to 55. And what are the cognitive changes? You know about Alzheimer and other memory problems in um, older people. We have a very interesting phrase in psychology. It is called fluid intelligence. Information processing skills, such as memory, calculations, and analytic solving, shows decline in late adulthood. But crystallized intelligence, accumulation of information, skills, and strategy learned through experience remain steady, sometimes better and better and better. We have two types. About the information, you have some problems when you are old age. About the information, about your memory, not about your wisdom, not about the skills, not about your creativity. Old aging ends to loss of information. Yes, it is about memory. But in combination of information, in creating some new approaches to life, you know that many scientists, many musicians, many artists have created their best masterpieces after age of 60, after age of 50, sometimes at the latest part of their life. Why? Because they have been some very, very skillful, something more than skillful. They have become very wise, very sage, very sharp. It is only about the information, not about the skills. Because of that, many people after retirement, they are again hired by their institutions, by organization as the counselors. Why? Because they have 30 years of experience in that company. They know everything. After formal retirement, we should use their knowledge because of the great and long-term experience. And not it is not about knowledge, it is about wisdom. It is about multi-dimensional thinking about everything in your life, which is related to your past experiences and failures and successes, and knowing about the different aspects, at least about something in the uh, psychosocial development of Eric Erickson. You can find in the last stage, which is about ego integrity versus despair. Erickson asked that who is a wise man? What is the wisdom? It's a very important question. Why? He said, if you have a good ego integrity, if you have a good harmonization between different aspects of your life, you are already so satisfactory, so you have a good satisfaction to be prepared for dying. Why not? But if you have many questions in your mind when you are old age, you're anxious. You are not prepared for going to the process of dying. And memory loss is not inevitable with aging. And Alzheimer disease, we are at the last parts of the discourse. Alzheimer disease, progressive brain disorder that leads to gradual and irreversible decline of cognitive abilities. Sorry, Alzheimer is not only about memory, other cognitive abilities. For example, orientation, direction, address finding, and thinking, and sometimes orientation to time, space, persons, because the tissue of your brain is progressively damaging. The tissue, the physical tissue of your brain. One of the first diagnostic examination for Alzheimer's is about MRI. We know about the physical damage, physical tissue of the brain in Alzheimer. And the social world of late adulthood, it is this engagement theory of aging. Aging produces a gradual withdrawal from the world on physical, psychological, and social levels. Because of that, social support and being together for old age people is very important. Activity theory of aging says successful aging means maintaining the interests and the activities you had during middle age. And the final part is it about life review, the process by which people examine and evaluate their value. And they want to know, can I summarize our life in a one single story from childhood until the end of the, for example, life, for the last parts of life? They want to know everything about it. There's a good part in this discussion about aging, which says we have a fitness age. We have different age. We have mental age, calendar age, for example, sex age, family age. We have a fitness age. What does it mean, fitness? Fitness age says that your body has a good sense of fitness. For example, your calendar age is 65, but your body, your fitness age is 55. Why? Because you exercise, you practice every day, regular yoga, regular swimming, regular running, and other things. It is about fitness age. Please go to internet, especially um, into YouTube, and watch the videos about the fitness age. If each of you want to have a good industry, good company about aging, especially in America, aging is very important. It can be so money maker, so good money maker company to only especially work on the aging and midlife. It is very good company. It can be a very good money making company. Okay, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is the most famous theories about the theory for adjusting with death. Your death, for example, when you are diagnosed with cancer, they said to you about, for example, 1 year that, sorry, after 1 year, you have only a time of 1 year until your death. For example, if you're as a progressive and advanced cancer. This is about one part about the people who knows that they have a limited time until their death. And other parts is about confronting with other, especially your significant others' death or prediction of death, chronic illness, cancer, or brain damage, or for example, car crash in your near significant others, and you know there is no time for their life, and they are going to the end stage of their life, which is called death. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is the most famous person work on this, scientifically work on the stage of death. And she said to us that confronting with one's own impending death has 5 stages. Just you can find it in confronting, for example, with cancer. At first, people say, no, 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 no. It is not my cancer. The physician may be wrong. I want to check it and recheck it again. It is denial stage. Resist the idea they are dying. And after that, they know that, yes, I am dying. Why? Why me? I haven't lived my life so fully. Why me? It is anger. Anger at people in good health around them, at medical problem, at God sometimes. Many complain against God. Many complain against, for example, other people, why they are alive and I am going to the death stage. The third stage is bargaining, trying to postpone death. Is it any possibility to postpone my death, for example, for 1 year, for 6 months? Maybe the test results are wrong. They are bargaining. And finally, they go to depression. Bargain will not work. Preparatory grief for their own death. And the final stage is acceptance. Make peace with themselves, usually unemotional and uncommunicative. Usually unemotional and uncommunicative. They accept, yes, that yes, I am getting closer and closer to death in a short period of time, not in a long time. For example, I said, yes, after some decades I will die. It is not the death process. These are the major important 5 stages in confronting with your death or your significant other death: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I love developmental psychology. I think the course of developmental psychology can create a deeper, holistic approach to life. I think every educated man or woman, every educated in university, in all university, should mandatory pass and take a course of developmental psychology. All the general psychology are important, but only one chapter and one session is for developmental psychology. Developmental psychology can give you a good science-based approach, a good science-based point of view, a good science-based conceptual framework to your life, to your social life, to your emotional life, to your family life, to your love life, and more important than anything, for your personal life. Not about your family, not about your money, not about your social credit or prestige, not about your power, not about your wealth, about your own life. Because of that, developmental psychology is a very, very useful course. And I hope, and I tried also to give you the basic concepts. Also, your book is one of the best books in the field of general psychology. You can read it so more carefully than I deliver to you in this near 2 hours. I tried to give you the major concepts of developmental psychology. Thanks to be with me and with the class, and thanks for watching this video. See you again. Bye.